I'm Vanessa Wilson, 30 years old, and the forgotten sister of Miranda, the golden child. Despite our complicated relationship, I was genuinely excited for her wedding day. I arrived at the luxurious venue in my carefully chosen dress, heart full of hope for reconciliation. Then I found my place card. My assigned seat was in the hallway, next to trash cans. Miranda smirked when I asked about it. Guess you don't count. Without a word, I took my gift and walked out. If you're watching this story, drop a comment telling me where you're from and don't forget to subscribe if family drama resonates with you. Growing up with Miranda was never easy. From the beginning, our parents Richard and Catherine Wilson made it clear who the favorite child was. Miranda came into the world 3 years after me, a beautiful baby girl with bright blue eyes and blonde curls, while I had inherited my grandmother's auburn hair and green eyes. The difference in how we were treated started subtly, but became more obvious as years passed. On my 10th birthday, my parents organized a small gathering with just 2 friends allowed. 3 months later, for Miranda's 7th birthday, they rented a pony, hired a clown, and invited her entire class. When I asked why my celebration had been so much smaller, my mother simply said, "Miranda is more sociable. She needs bigger parties." It was the first time I recognized the pattern, but certainly not the last. Throughout elementary school, my report cards consistently showed straight A's. My parents would nod, say, "Good job, Vanessa," and then move on. But when Miranda brought home BS and CS, there would be celebrations, ice cream trips, and excessive praise for her trying her best. The bar was always set lower for her while my achievements were treated as expected. When I won the regional spelling bee in 8th grade, my parents couldn't attend because Miranda had a dance recital the same day. "You'll be fine on your own. You're so independent," my father said. I stood on that stage accepting my trophy, scanning the audience for familiar faces that weren't there. Later that evening, our living room was filled with photos of Miranda in her tutu, while my trophy was relegated to my bedroom shelf. I found refuge in academics. Books didn't play favorites. Math problems didn't care who was prettier or more charming. Science experiments gave consistent results based on variables I could control, unlike family dynamics that seemed to operate on rules I couldn't understand. While Miranda blossomed as the social butterfly with countless friends and weekend activities, I retreated into studying, planning my escape through education. College acceptance letters started arriving during my senior year of high school. When Stanford offered me a partial scholarship, my parents seemed more concerned about how far away California was and who would help Miranda with her homework when I left. Still, I grabbed that opportunity and moved across the country, breathing freely for the first time. During college, I called home weekly. The conversations always drifted to Miranda's latest accomplishments or dramas. I could spend 20 minutes describing my challenging classes and research projects, only to have my mother respond with, "That's nice, dear. Did you know Miranda was nominated for Homecoming Queen?" After graduating with honors in marketing, I landed a job at a digital agency in San Francisco. Over the next 8 years, I built my career with minimal family support or interest. Meanwhile, Miranda dropped out of community college, worked various retail jobs, and continued being the center of family attention through her dramatic relationships and frequent career changes. 3 years ago, my father had a minor heart attack. It was the wake-up call I needed to try rebuilding family connections despite the pain. I started visiting home twice a year, instead of just for Christmas. I made more effort to call, to show interest in Miranda's life, to find common ground. Sometimes it seemed to work. We'd have a nice lunch or shopping trip. Other times, the old dynamics would resurface, and I'd find myself feeling like that overlooked child again. When Miranda met Bradley Thompson at a charity gala 18 months ago, our family dynamic shifted again. Bradley came from old money, was handsome, successful, and for some reason, completely smitten with my sister. Their whirlwind romance culminated in a proposal 6 months later, with a diamond ring that probably cost more than my annual salary. I was genuinely happy for Miranda. Despite everything, I wanted her to find joy and stability. When she called to announce her engagement, I congratulated her warmly and sincerely. I'm really happy for you, Miranda. Bradley seems wonderful, I told her. Thanks, Vanessa, she replied, sounding surprisingly genuine. Actually, I was hoping you'd help me with some of the wedding planning. You've always been so organized and good with details. That conversation marked the beginning of what I thought was a new chapter in our relationship. For months, I helped research venues, florists, and caterers from across the country. I spent hours on video calls viewing fabric swatches and cake designs. I listened patiently as Miranda changed her mind about colors, themes, and guest lists multiple times. 2 months before the wedding, Miranda called me excitedly. Vanessa, I've been thinking. Would you want to be one of my bridesmaids? I know it's last minute, but it would mean a lot. The invitation caught me by surprise, but I was touched. Of course, Miranda. I'd be honored. For 3 weeks, I researched dresses that would match her burgundy and gold color scheme, sent her options, and even had measurements taken at a local tailor. Then, without explanation, she called again. Actually, I've decided to keep the bridal party small. Just my closest friends. You understand, right? You can still help with everything else. I swallowed my disappointment. Sure, Miranda. Whatever makes your day special. Even after that, I continued helping, investing time and emotional energy in hoping this wedding would somehow heal our fractured family. Looking back, I should have recognized the warning signs, but hope is a powerful force that can blind us to reality. The morning of Miranda's wedding arrived with perfect weather, almost as if nature itself had received the memo to accommodate the golden child. I woke up early in my hotel room, butterflies dancing in my stomach. Despite everything, I was excited. Today could be a turning point for our family, I told myself as I carefully applied my makeup. I had spent weeks searching for the perfect dress for the occasion after being removed from the bridal party. It was an elegant navy blue gown with subtle beading that caught the light when I moved. Expensive, but worth every penny if it helped me feel confident walking into a situation where I knew I'd be scrutinized. On the dresser sat a large box containing my gift for the couple. I had purchased the crystal vase from their registry, one of the most expensive items, at nearly $800. It had stretched my budget, but I wanted to show my support in a tangible way. Next to it lay my handwritten card with a heartfelt message about new beginnings and family bonds. My phone buzzed with a text from Diana, my best friend since college. Just arrived at the hotel. Meet for coffee before we head to the venue. Diana was my emotional anchor for this event. She knew every painful detail of my family history and had offered to fly in specifically to support me. In the hotel lobby, she gave me a tight hug and then held me at arm's length. You look stunning, she said, examining my outfit. How are you feeling? Nervous, hopeful, terrified, I admitted. Part of me thinks today could change everything, and another part is waiting for the other shoe to drop. Diana squeezed my hand. Remember, your worth isn't determined by how they treat you. I'm right beside you all day. We arrived at the Vineyard Estate an hour before the ceremony. The venue was breathtaking, with flowering gardens and a view of rolling hills dotted with grapevines. Staff members were making final arrangements, placing floral arrangements, and adjusting table settings in the reception hall. I spotted my mother directing a waiter about champagne glasses. When she saw me, her expression was unreadable. Vanessa, you're early, she said, giving me a brief hug. No compliment on my appearance, no warmth. I wanted to see if you needed help with anything, I offered. Everything's under control. Miranda's getting ready in the bridal suite. She turned back to the waiter, effectively dismissing me. I circulated among arriving family members, receiving cool greetings from aunts and uncles who had always followed my parents' lead in family dynamics. Cousin Melissa was the only one who seemed genuinely happy to see me, giving me a warm embrace and catching up on my work in San Francisco. The ceremony was scheduled in the vineyard's garden. As guests were seated, I noticed the front rows were half empty, reserved for immediate family, but no one directed me there. Diana and I found seats in the back row, despite my status as the bride's only sister. When the music started and Miranda appeared on our father's arm, I couldn't help the tears that welled up. She looked truly beautiful in her designer gown, beaming with happiness. For a moment, watching her walk down the aisle, I forgot all the hurt and felt pure joy for my sister. The ceremony was lovely, with personal vows that made everyone emotional. When Miranda spoke about family being her foundation, I allowed myself to hope that perhaps she included me in that sentiment. When Bradley promised to create a loving home where everyone felt valued, I imagined future holidays where old wounds might finally heal. After the ceremony, guests moved to an adjacent patio for cocktail hour. I approached Miranda to congratulate her, waiting patiently while various friends and relatives took turns hugging the newlyweds. When I finally reached her, I gave her a gentle embrace, mindful of her dress. "You look beautiful, Miranda." The ceremony was perfect. "Thanks for coming," she replied, the generic response she'd given every guest. Then, as Bradley's parents approached, she made introductions. "These are Bradley's parents, Elizabeth and James Thompson. This is just my sister, Vanessa." Just my sister. 3 words that perfectly encapsulated my place in her life. The cocktail hour dragged on as I made small talk with distant relatives and Miranda's friends who clearly had no idea who I was. Diana stayed close, smoothly intervening whenever conversations became awkward. As waitstaff began directing guests toward the reception hall, Diana and I joined the movement. Inside, round tables were beautifully decorated with floral centerpieces and gold accents. People moved around, finding place cards and their assigned seats. After checking several tables without finding my name, I approached the wedding planner, a harried woman with a clipboard. "Excuse me, I'm Vanessa Wilson, the bride's sister. I can't seem to find my place card." She flipped through pages on her clipboard, frowning slightly. "Wilson? Vanessa. Yes, here you are." She pointed toward a door at the side of the hall. "Your table is through there in the extended seating area." Diana and I exchanged glances before following her directions. The door led to a hallway that connected the main reception area to the kitchens. A single small table was positioned against the wall, directly beside large trash bins used by the catering staff. My place card sat alone on the table. "There must be a mistake," Diana whispered. "This can't be right." But deep down, I knew it wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate. This was Miranda showing me exactly how little I mattered on her special day. I stood frozen, staring at the solitary place card on the small table. My name, Vanessa Wilson, was written in the same elegant calligraphy as all the other place cards, but mine was the only one in this service hallway. The smell of garbage from the nearby bins mingled with the occasional waft of kitchen odors each time a server pushed through the swinging doors. "This is insane," Diana said, her voice tight with anger. "You're her sister. You can't possibly be expected to sit here alone." I felt a strange calm settle over me, the kind that comes when a suspicion you've always harbored is finally confirmed. "I need to talk to Miranda." Diana nodded. "I'll wait here." I made my way back into the reception hall where guests were finding their seats among beautifully decorated tables. The contrast between those tables and my assigned spot was stark and unmistakable. I spotted Miranda near the head table, laughing with some friends. Bradley stood beside her, his hand resting lightly on her lower back. As I approached, Miranda saw me coming. Something flashed in her eyes, satisfaction, perhaps? Before she composed her features into a neutral expression. "Miranda, can I speak with you for a moment?" I kept my voice low and calm. "What is it?" "We're about to start dinner," she replied. "My place card is showing I'm seated in the hallway by the kitchen, next to the trash cans. There must be some mistake." I searched her face for any sign of embarrassment or surprise. There was none. Instead, her lips curved into a slight smirk. That's where we had room. We prioritized people who actually matter to us. The cruelty of her words struck me like a physical blow. Bradley looked uncomfortable but remained silent. Several of his family members standing nearby were clearly listening, their expressions shifting between embarrassment and shock. "Guess you don't count," Miranda added, her voice carrying just enough for those nearby to hear. My mother appeared at Miranda's elbow, perhaps sensing potential drama. "Is there a problem?" Vanessa is unhappy with her seating arrangement, Miranda explained with exaggerated patience. I turned to my mother. Did you know I was seated alone in the hallway by the garbage bins? My mother at least had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. That's just how the seating worked out. We had limited space and had to make some adjustments. I looked around the hall, noting at least 3 tables with empty chairs. The lie was so transparent, it didn't even deserve acknowledgement. In that moment, with perfect clarity, I understood that nothing would ever change. No amount of effort, forgiveness, or hope on my part would ever be enough to earn a place at their table, literally and figuratively. I nodded slowly. I see. Thank you for making it so clear. Without another word, I walked back through the reception hall to the hallway where Diana waited. I picked up the gift box containing the crystal vase. We're leaving, I told Diana. Good, she replied firmly. This is beyond unacceptable. As we walked toward the exit, my Uncle Robert stepped into our path. Vanessa, where are you going? They're about to serve dinner. I'm not hungry, I replied simply. Not for what's being served here. Don't make a scene, he warned. It's your sister's wedding day. I'm not making a scene. I'm just leaving quietly, which is apparently what everyone would prefer anyway. We continued toward the exit. In the parking lot, I heard someone calling my name. It was Aunt Susan, my father's sister, hurrying after us. Vanessa, wait, she called. I paused, not particularly wanting another lecture about family obligation. Aunt Susan reached us, slightly out of breath. I want you to know that what they did was cruel and inexcusable. I've watched how they've treated you for years, and I've been too cowardly to say anything. Not everyone in this family agrees with how you've been treated. Her words were unexpected and touched something raw within me. Thank you, Aunt Susan. What will you do with the gift? She asked, nodding at the box in my hands. I looked down at the carefully wrapped package. I'm taking it with me. They haven't earned it. She nodded in understanding. Take care of yourself, Vanessa. Your worth isn't determined by how they see you. The drive back to the hotel was silent at first. Diana respected my need to process what had happened. About halfway there, the emotions I'd been holding back broke free, and tears began streaming down my face. Diana reached across to squeeze my hand, but didn't speak. Back in my hotel room, I sat on the edge of the bed still in my beautiful dress, feeling hollow. My phone began buzzing with texts. The first was from cousin Melissa. Just found out what happened. I'm leaving too. That was cruel, and you deserve better. Call me later. Then came a message from an unknown number. This is Taylor, Bradley's sister. What they did to you is horrible. Several of us are very upset about it. Can I call you tomorrow? I was typing a response when my phone rang, displaying Miranda's name. I declined the call. It immediately rang again. And again. On the 4th attempt, I finally answered. How dare you walk out of my wedding? Miranda's voice was shrill with anger. You've ruined everything. People are talking. Goodbye, Miranda, I said quietly, and ended the call. More calls followed from my parents, from relatives, from Miranda again. I turned off my phone and changed out of my dress, hanging it carefully in the closet. It was a beautiful gown that deserved another occasion, one where I would be valued and welcomed. Diana knocked on the connecting door between our rooms. Room service and wine, she suggested. That sounds perfect, I replied, grateful beyond words for her presence. The next morning, I woke up in my hotel room feeling strangely lighter, as if I'd put down a heavy burden I'd been carrying for decades. Diana and I had breakfast together before she had to catch her flight back to Chicago. Are you sure you'll be okay? She asked, concern evident in her eyes. I think I will be, I answered, surprising myself with how much I meant it. Something shifted yesterday. I've spent my whole life hoping for their approval, and now I finally accept that it's never coming. It's sad, but it's also freeing. After seeing Diana off, I drove back to San Francisco, my gift still in its box on the passenger seat. I had Monday off work, but decided to use Tuesday as a personal day as well, giving myself time to process everything. By Monday afternoon, I finally turned my phone back on. It immediately exploded with notifications, missed calls, texts, and social media alerts. Most surprising were several messages from people I didn't know. As I was sorting through this confusion, my phone rang with an unknown number. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but something told me I should. Hello, Vanessa? This is Taylor Thompson, Bradley's sister. We texted briefly yesterday. Yes, I remember. I replied cautiously. I know this is awkward since we don't really know each other, but I felt I needed to call you. Are you aware of what's happening online? My stomach tightened. No, what do you mean? Someone at the wedding recorded the interaction between you and Miranda when she told you about your seating and you left. They posted it online, and it's going viral. People are calling it #HallwayBridesmaid. I sank onto my couch, stunned. What? Who would do that? It wasn't me, Taylor quickly clarified. But I think it was one of my cousins. The video clearly shows Miranda saying you don't count, and then it follows you walking out with your gift. It's been shared thousands of times since last night. With shaking hands, I opened social media and searched the hashtag. Sure enough, there it was, a video capturing one of the most painful moments of my life, now being viewed by strangers everywhere. The footage was taken from an angle that clearly showed Miranda's smirk, my mother's indifference, and my quiet dignity as I walked away. The comment section was overwhelming. The sister showed amazing grace under fire. I would have made a scene. She just quietly left with her head high. That bride is the definition of toxic. The way the mother just stood there and allowed it, heartbreaking. As I scrolled in disbelief, my phone lit up with a call from Miranda. This time, I answered. Are you happy now? She screamed without preamble. My wedding is ruined. Everyone is calling me a monster. This is all your fault. Miranda, I didn't record or post anything. I didn't even know about this until just now. You must have planned this. You've always been jealous of me. You couldn't stand that I was having a perfect wedding, so you had to make it all about you. That's not what happened and you know it, I replied calmly. You seated your only sister next to garbage cans and told me I don't count. What did you expect would happen? You should have just accepted it. It was my day. And I respected that by leaving quietly instead of making a scene. Goodbye, Miranda. I ended the call, and immediately my phone lit up again. My parents this time. I took a deep breath and answered. Vanessa, you need to call your sister and apologize, my father demanded. She's devastated. Her wedding is being ruined by this internet nonsense. Apologize for what exactly? For being seated next to trash cans, or for leaving quietly when I was told I don't count. You're blowing this out of proportion, my mother interjected. It wasn't personal. We just had limited space. The video clearly shows empty seats at multiple tables, Mom. Please don't insult my intelligence on top of everything else. You always have to make everything difficult, she sighed. Now the whole internet is involved, and people are judging our family without knowing the full story. What's the full story then? Please enlighten me. The silence that followed was telling. That's what I thought, I said. I didn't post that video, but I'm not going to apologize for someone else showing the world how you treat me. I ended the call and turned off my phone again, needing space from the escalating drama. The next morning, I went into the office, hoping work would provide a distraction. I'd barely settled at my desk when my boss, Linda, appeared at my cubicle. Vanessa, got a minute? Her expression was concerned. In her office, she closed the door. I saw the video. Are you okay? I hadn't expected this conversation and felt tears threatening.
I am managing.
I'm sorry if it's reflecting badly on the company. That's not my concern at all, Linda said firmly. I'm asking as someone who cares about your well-being. What happened was shocking, and you handled it with remarkable composure. If you need additional time off, just say the word. Her kindness nearly undid me. Thank you. I think work is actually helpful right now, but I appreciate the offer. Throughout the day, colleagues stopped by with subtle shows of support, a coffee placed on my desk, offers to handle calls, and simple check-ins. By afternoon, my phone was buzzing constantly again. Cousin Melissa texted that several family members were horrified by the video and were reaching out to offer support. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years sent messages of encouragement. The most surprising call came from my childhood friend Natalie, who I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. "Vanessa, I saw the video, and I had to call. Do you remember my 16th birthday party?" "Of course," I replied, confused by the question. "Your parents rented that beach house." "Yes, and your parents only let you come for the afternoon portion, not the sleepover. They said it was because you had a test to study for, but Miranda, who was 13, got to stay the whole weekend. I never understood why they did that to you, but now, seeing that video, it all makes sense. There's a pattern that goes way back." These connections and realizations from others continued flooding in, creating an unexpected community of support around me. The viral video had inadvertently exposed a family dynamic that had been carefully hidden from the outside world for decades. By Wednesday, the story had been picked up by several major websites focusing on family relationships and wedding etiquette. One popular wedding blog reached out requesting an interview, which I politely declined. This wasn't about public shaming. It was about finally acknowledging a painful truth I'd been running for my entire life. Miranda continued sending angry texts, each one shifting between blaming me, playing the victim, and demanding I fix the situation. My parents vacillated between guilt-tripping and attempting to downplay what had happened. I maintained minimal contact, responding only with brief, factual statements when necessary. The most unexpected development came from Bradley's family. Several of his relatives reached out with kind messages, clearly embarrassed by what they had witnessed. Taylor kept in touch, letting me know that Bradley's family was seeing Miranda in a new light after the incident. "My grandmother in particular is livid," Taylor explained during one call. "She's big on family loyalty and respect. She keeps saying, if that's how she treats her only sister, how will she treat our family down the road?" I took no pleasure in this fallout. Despite everything, I didn't want revenge or for Miranda to suffer. I simply wanted acknowledgement of the pattern and, perhaps naively, some genuine remorse. But as the week progressed, it became clear that Miranda was only sorry about being exposed, not about what she had done. 5 days after the wedding, I was working from home when my building security called up. "Ms. Wilson, there's a Mrs. Gloria Thompson here to see you. She says she's family." Bradley's grandmother? I had never met her, though I'd heard she was the formidable matriarch of the Thompson family. "Please send her up." Minutes later, I opened my door to find an elegant woman in her 70s, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her silver hair was styled in a classic bob, and despite her age, she stood straight and confident. "Vanessa Wilson? I'm Gloria Thompson, Bradley's grandmother. May I come in?" I invited her inside, frantically trying to remember if my apartment was presentable. "Would you like some tea or coffee?" "Tea would be lovely, thank you." As I prepared the tea, Gloria examined the photographs on my bookshelf, mostly travel shots and pictures with friends. Notably absent were family photos. "You have a beautiful home," she commented. "Very tasteful." "Thank you. It's nothing like the Thompson estate, I'm sure, but it's mine." She smiled appreciatively at my candor. Sometimes what makes a space special is knowing you've created it entirely on your own merits. We settled in my living room, and I waited for her to explain her unexpected visit. "I imagine you're wondering why I'm here," Gloria began, accepting the tea I offered. "I was at your sister's wedding, though we weren't introduced. I witnessed what happened, and I've seen the video that's circulating." I tensed, preparing for either criticism or unwanted sympathy. "I'm not here to discuss that directly," she continued, surprising me. "I'm here because I recognized something in you that reminded me of myself." She set down her teacup and regarded me intently. 60 years ago, I was in a similar position in my family. Different circumstances, but the same dynamic. The overlooked daughter, never quite measuring up, always an afterthought. This was not what I had expected. What happened? I married into the Thompson family, which gave me financial security and social standing. But more importantly, I built my own life on my terms. I started a foundation, raised my children to value character over status, and eventually earned the respect I was never freely given by my birth family. She leaned forward slightly. What I recognized in you, Vanessa, was dignity. You didn't cause a scene or seek revenge. You simply removed yourself from a situation where you weren't valued. I appreciate that, I said, genuinely touched. But I'm still struggling with what comes next. How do I move forward with my family after this? Gloria considered the question carefully. That depends on what you want and what they're capable of giving. Some people never change, and we must accept that limitation. Others might, given the right motivation and enough time. She reached into her handbag and removed an envelope. Bradley called me yesterday. He wanted me to give you this. I accepted the envelope with trepidation. Inside was a handwritten letter. Vanessa, I owe you an apology. I witnessed how you were treated at our wedding and said nothing. I convinced myself it wasn't my place to interfere in family matters, but that was cowardice. No one deserves to be treated that way, especially by their own family. I should have spoken up. I should have ensured you were treated with the respect you deserve as Miranda's sister. My silence made me complicit, and for that, I am truly sorry. I want you to know that I'm having serious conversations with Miranda about what happened. She's struggling to see beyond her own perspective, but I'm committed to helping her understand the impact of her actions. Respectfully, Bradley. I folded the letter, surprisingly moved by his words. Thank you for bringing this. Gloria nodded. Bradley is a good man. Sometimes too eager to keep the peace, but his heart is in the right place.
She paused.
There's something else you should know. After seeing what happened at the wedding, I've decided to revise certain aspects of my estate planning. I blinked in surprise. Mrs. Thompson, that's really not necessary or appropriate. She waved away my concern. It's not what you think. I'm not disinheriting anyone. But I am adding specific provisions about family conduct and establishing a separate trust for family reconciliation efforts. The Thompson family wealth comes with responsibility, and I want to ensure it fosters healing rather than entitlement. As Gloria prepared to leave, she placed her hand on mine. Remember, Vanessa, family isn't just about blood. It's about who treats you like you matter. Sometimes the family we choose is more important than the family we're born into. After she left, I sat in my apartment, reflecting on our conversation. Within an hour, my phone rang with Miranda's number. What did Bradley's grandmother want with you? She demanded without greeting. Hello to you too, Miranda. Don't play games. Our doorman said she visited you. What did she say? What are you plotting? We had tea and a pleasant conversation. She's a remarkable woman. Is she cutting Bradley out of the will because of me? Is that what this is about? The panic in her voice was revealing. That wasn't mentioned. But if that's your first concern, it might be worth examining your priorities. You've turned everyone against me. Her voice cracked with what sounded like genuine distress. Bradley's family is looking at me differently. His grandmother hasn't spoken to me since the wedding. Even my friends are asking me what really happened. It's like everyone's taking your side without hearing mine. For the first time, I heard something beyond anger in her voice. Fear, confusion, perhaps even a glimmer of regret. Miranda, this isn't about sides. It's about how we treat each other. I've spent my entire life trying to earn a place in this family, and at your wedding, you literally seated me with the garbage. What message did you think that would send? The line went quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. I didn't think about it that way. She finally said, her voice small. I wanted everything perfect. You always overshadow me without even trying. You're so put together, so successful. Even Bradley mentioned how impressed he was with your career when you first met. I just wanted one day where I was the only one who mattered. It was the closest thing to honesty we'd shared in years. I never wanted to overshadow you, Miranda. I just wanted to be treated like I mattered too. Another long pause followed. I need to go, she said abruptly. Bradley's waiting for me. The call ended, but something had shifted. It wasn't reconciliation, not yet, but perhaps it was the first crack in a wall that had seemed impenetrable for decades. Over the next 2 weeks, the online attention gradually subsided. though the video had sparked meaningful conversations about family dynamics and wedding etiquette. I received countless messages from people sharing similar experiences, many expressing how seeing my story had given them courage to establish boundaries in their own relationships. Meanwhile, a subtle but significant change was occurring within my extended family. Relatives who had always followed my parents' lead in how they treated me began reaching out independently. My Aunt Susan organized a lunch with several cousins, creating space for genuine connection away from my parents' influence. Most surprisingly, my father called one evening, asking if we could meet for coffee. His voice lacked the authoritative tone he typically used with me, instead sounding uncertain, almost tentative. I agreed, cautiously optimistic but maintaining realistic expectations. The coffee shop my father suggested was neutral territory, a place with no family history or emotional landmines. I arrived early, selecting a table in a quiet corner. When he walked in, I was struck by how much older he looked than at the wedding just 3 weeks earlier. The confident posture was diminished, his shoulders slightly hunched, as if carrying a new weight. "Thank you for meeting me," he said as he sat down. No hug, which was typical for our relationship, but his eyes held mine with unusual intentness. "Of course," I replied. "Is everything okay?" He sighed heavily. "Your mother and I would like you to come to dinner this Sunday. Miranda and Bradley will be there. We think it's time we all talked." I had expected many openings to this conversation, but not this one. Talk about what exactly? Everything. The wedding. The video. Our family. He hesitated. "How we've treated you." I studied him, looking for signs of the usual manipulation, but found only fatigue and something that might have been regret. Will this be an actual conversation? Or am I being invited to receive a lecture about family loyalty? The bluntness of my question seemed to surprise him. "It's not like that. Things have been difficult since the wedding. Your mother and I have been doing some reflecting." "Reflecting," I repeated. "Because you've suddenly realized there's a problem, or because other people now know there's a problem?" His gaze dropped to his coffee cup. "Both, I suppose. Does it matter why, if we're trying to make things right?" "It matters to me," I said quietly. "I need to know if this is about genuine change or just damage control." He nodded slowly. "I understand why you'd question our motives. All I can say is that we'd like a chance to talk, really talk as a family." I considered his request. Part of me wanted to refuse, to protect myself from another disappointment. But another part, the part that had always hoped for reconciliation, couldn't completely let go. "I'll come," I finally said. "But I'm not coming to be ganged up on or gaslighted about what happened. If that starts happening, I'll leave." "That's fair," he agreed, looking relieved. "Sunday at 6? When Sunday arrived, I drove to my parents' house with a mixture of dread and cautious hope. I'd spoken with Diana at length about setting boundaries and managing expectations. "Remember," she'd said, "you're not responsible for fixing this. You're just giving them an opportunity to start rebuilding trust they've broken." Miranda's car was already in the driveway when I arrived. Taking a deep breath, I rang the doorbell rather than using my key, a small but symbolic choice that said I was now a visitor rather than a member of the household. My mother opened the door, her expression a complicated mixture of emotions. "Vanessa, thank you for coming." She moved as if to hug me, then seemed to think better of it when she saw my reserved expression. Everyone's in the living room. The atmosphere was tense as I entered. Miranda and Bradley sat together on the sofa, while my father stood by the fireplace. Bradley rose immediately, extending his hand. "Vanessa, it's good to see you." I shook his hand, appreciating his simple courtesy. Miranda remained seated, her eyes darting between me and the floor. "Shall we move to the dining room?" my mother suggested. "Dinner's ready." The meal began with awkward small talk about weather and local news. It wasn't until dessert was served that my father cleared his throat, signaling a shift in conversation. "I think it's time we address what happened at the wedding and everything that led up to it." My mother nodded tightly. "We've all had time to think, and we feel this situation has been blown out of proportion by that video." I set down my fork, If that's the direction this conversation is going, I should leave now. No, wait. My father interjected. Catherine, that's not what we agreed to discuss.
He turned to me.
We're not here to minimize what happened. We're here to understand it better. Miranda suddenly spoke up. I want to apologize for where I seated you at the reception. The words sounded rehearsed, her tone lacking genuine remorse. It was thoughtless, and I'm sorry if it hurt your feelings. If it hurt my feelings? I repeated. Miranda, you put your only sister at a table next to garbage cans and told me I don't count. That goes beyond thoughtlessness. What do you want from me? She snapped, her practiced contrition instantly evaporating. I said I'm sorry. I want you to understand why what you did was hurtful, not just apologize because you got caught and exposed. Bradley placed a gentle hand on Miranda's arm. Remember what we discussed, he said quietly. She took a deep breath.
Fine.
I was jealous, okay? You've always been the smart one, the successful one. Everyone always talks about how accomplished you are, how put together. I wanted one day where I was the center of attention, where you weren't outshining me. I have never tried to outshine you, Miranda. Never. I've spent my entire life trying to make myself smaller around this family to avoid exactly that accusation. My mother interjected. That's not fair, Vanessa. We've always celebrated both of you equally. The absurdity of her statement left me momentarily speechless. Mom, that's simply not true. You've favored Miranda since we were children. Every birthday, every achievement, every holiday made that clear. That's ridiculous, she replied defensively. We love you both the same. Love isn't just a feeling, it's demonstrated through actions, I countered. When was the last time you called me just to check in, not to tell me about Miranda's latest news? When have you ever put my needs or feelings first? Can you name a single instance? Her silence was damning. My father shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps we've been unbalanced in how we've shown attention to you both. That wasn't intentional. Intent doesn't erase impact, I said quietly. I've spent my entire life feeling like an outsider in my own family. The seating at the wedding was just the most public manifestation of a dynamic that's always existed. Miranda's eyes filled with tears, but for once, they didn't immediately become the focus of attention. I didn't realize, she whispered. I always thought you had everything together. That you didn't need anyone. That you were the lucky one. Lucky? I echoed in disbelief. To feel unwanted in my own family? No, she shook her head. Lucky to know who you are. To be confident and independent. I've always felt like I only matter because of how Mom and Dad treat me. Without their constant attention and praise, who am I? It was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me, and it revealed a perspective I'd never considered. While I'd been starving for the attention and validation they lavished on Miranda, she'd become dependent on it for her sense of self-worth. My father cleared his throat. I think we've all been caught in patterns none of us fully recognized. When you left the wedding, Vanessa, and then that video surfaced, it forced us to see ourselves through others' eyes. It wasn't a flattering view. Bradley's grandmother came to see me, I said, looking directly at my father. She shared some perspective that really resonated. She said family isn't just about blood, it's about who treats you like you matter. My mother flinched visibly at these words. I don't want revenge, I continued. I don't want to punish anyone. But I do want acknowledgement of this pattern and genuine effort to change it. Otherwise, I need to continue creating distance for my own well-being. My father nodded slowly. That's fair. More than fair, given everything. Miranda wiped her eyes. I don't know how to fix this. I don't even know how to begin. Neither do I admitted. But recognizing there's a problem is the first step. Maybe we need help with the rest. Bradley, who had been quiet throughout most of the exchange, spoke up. My family has worked with a therapist who specializes in family dynamics. If everyone is willing, it might be helpful to have some sessions together. To my surprise, my father nodded. I think that's a good idea. Catherine? My mother looked less convinced, but agreed reluctantly. If that's what it takes to move past this, yes. We didn't solve decades of dysfunction in one dinner conversation. There were still moments of defensiveness, old patterns reasserting themselves, pain bubbling to the surface. But for the first time, there was also honesty. Real, uncomfortable, necessary honesty. As I prepared to leave, Miranda approached me awkwardly. "I kept your gift," she said. "The crystal vase." I didn't open it, but Bradley told me what it was. It was the most expensive item on our registry. I nodded, unsure where she was going with this. "You shouldn't have spent that much," she continued, "especially given how." She trailed off. "How you treated me?" I finished for her. She nodded, looking genuinely ashamed. "Yes. It was a symbol of what I hoped our relationship could become," I explained. "Not what it was." "Can I ask you something?" she said hesitantly. "Do you think we could ever be actual sisters? Not just by blood, but real sisters who care about each other?" It was the question I'd been asking myself my entire life. "I don't know, Miranda. I hope so. But it would take real work from both of us and consistent effort from Mom and Dad to change how they interact with us." "I'd like to try," she said softly, "if you're willing." It wasn't a magical reconciliation. It wasn't even a guarantee of change. But it was the first genuine overture she'd ever extended, and despite everything, I found myself willing to accept it as a starting point. "I'd like to try too," I replied. "One day at a time." 6 months after the wedding incident, I stood in my new office overlooking San Francisco Bay, still sometimes amazed by how life could change so unexpectedly. The viral video had brought more than family turmoil. It had caught the attention of Eliza Carter, founder of a prestigious event planning company known for creating inclusive, thoughtful celebrations. "I was impressed by your dignity in an impossible situation," she told me during our first meeting. "That's exactly the sensitivity we want in our client consultations. Plus, your marketing background brings valuable skills to our team." The career shift from digital marketing to event planning had been unexpected but fulfilling. I specialized in family celebrations, using my personal experience to help clients navigate complex family dynamics while planning their events. My signature consultation question became, who needs to feel especially valued at this gathering, and how can we ensure that happens? The transition wasn't the only change in my life. My relationship with my family had entered a new phase, not perfect but evolving. The family therapy sessions Bradley suggested had been challenging but productive. My parents struggled with acknowledging their role in creating our family's toxic dynamic, but small breakthroughs occurred with each session. My father had proven more receptive to change than my mother. During our 4th therapy session, he'd broken down while discussing my spelling bee victory in 8th grade. "I knew we should have been there," he admitted, tears in his eyes. But Miranda threw such a fit about missing her recital that it seemed easier to disappoint Vanessa, who never complained. We took the path of least resistance for years, and it became our default. "I'm so sorry." My mother found it harder to acknowledge her favoritism. "I've always loved both my daughters equally," she insisted repeatedly. But even she couldn't deny the evidence when our therapist had us create timelines of family events and patterns became glaringly obvious. Miranda and I were building a tentative new relationship based on honesty rather than competition. We met for coffee every few weeks, sometimes with Bradley, sometimes just the two of us. Our conversations had evolved from careful small talk to more meaningful exchanges. "I've started therapy on my own," she told me during one such meeting. "I'm realizing I've built my entire identity around being the center of attention. When that's threatened, I panic and lash out." "That explains a lot about our childhood," I observed. She nodded. "I think I always saw your independence as rejection of the family, not as something you developed because you had to." These realizations didn't erase decades of hurt, but they created space for understanding and potential healing. Meanwhile, my unexpected friendship with Bradley's grandmother Gloria had flourished. We met monthly for lunch, and her wisdom became a grounding force in my life. "Family healing isn't linear," she told me during one of our conversations. "There will be progress and setbacks. The important thing is to maintain your boundaries while leaving space for change." Gloria had followed through on her plan to establish a family reconciliation trust. The Thompson family wealth should foster connection, not division, she explained. The trust would fund therapy, family retreats, and education about healthy family dynamics for generations to come. My relationship with Bradley's family had developed in ways I never anticipated. His sister Taylor became a friend, and his parents made genuine efforts to include me in family gatherings. "We want you to know that family doesn't have to be painful," Taylor told me. "It can be supportive and loving too." The viral video continued having unexpected ripple effects. I received messages from people around the world who had experienced similar family dynamics. Some shared stories of reconciliation, others of necessary distance for self-protection. Each message reinforced that family pain was universal, but not inevitable. These connections inspired me to start a support group for people navigating complex family relationships. We met monthly in a community center, sharing strategies for establishing boundaries while remaining open to genuine change. The group became a healing space, not just for participants but for me as well. "You've turned your pain into purpose," Diana observed during one of our regular video calls. "That's pretty remarkable." 1 year after the wedding, Miranda and Bradley renewed their vows in a small, intimate ceremony. This time, I was invited to stand beside Miranda as her only attendant. The gesture was symbolic but meaningful, a public acknowledgement of a relationship being rebuilt. During the reception, Miranda clinked her glass to make an unexpected speech. "A year ago, I made choices on my wedding day that reflected the worst parts of myself. Today, I'm grateful for the chance to do better."
She turned to me.
"Vanessa, thank you for your forgiveness and for teaching me what real strength looks like." The journey wasn't complete, and perhaps never would be. Old patterns sometimes reasserted themselves during family gatherings. My mother occasionally slipped back into favoring Miranda, my father into conflict avoidance. But now these behaviors were named and addressed rather than silently endured. I maintained firm boundaries, sometimes declining family events when I sensed they would be unhealthy. I no longer measured my worth by their validation, instead building a life rich with chosen family, friends, colleagues, and connections based on mutual respect. The most profound lesson I learned through this journey was that walking away wasn't admitting defeat. It was sometimes the first step toward healing. By removing myself from a situation where I wasn't valued, I created space for either genuine change or necessary distance. Family is both inherited and chosen, complicated and simple, painful and precious. The path forward isn't about perfect reconciliation or complete separation, but about creating relationships that honor everyone's dignity and worth. As I reflect on the journey from that hallway seat to where I am today, I realize that sometimes the most powerful response to cruelty isn't revenge or even confrontation. It's simply refusing to accept treatment that diminishes your value. In that quiet act of self-respect, we create the possibility for genuine transformation. Have you ever had to walk away from a situation to protect your self-worth? What happened afterward? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more reflections on family dynamics and personal growth. Remember, your worth is never determined by how others treat you, but by how you honor yourself. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I wish you strength in your own path toward healing and self-discovery.